I'm going to show you how to take this CodePen and create it into an Elementor dynamic widget without knowing any PHP. Someone sent me this example of this slick slider in CodePen, and he's asking me how can I create this into a widget. I got stuck on all sorts of stuff, and I looked at it and I saw a couple of things that he maybe got stuck on, so I decided to make a tutorial about this. And step by step I'll be explaining how I take this code and I create it into a Elementor dynamic widget. So first things first, and the first thing that popped out to me is that this is using less for the CSS, which is a CSS framework, and that can be problematic for us since our WordPress doesn't know how to read less. So a lot of people are sending me all sorts of CodePens and asking me, hey, why doesn't my CodePen work? This is the first thing you need to be checking out. If your CSS or HTML is using a certain framework that isn't working on your WordPress server. So this isn't hard to change. And let me show you how I change it. So first of all, I'm going to be forking this CodePen so I can make my version of the CodePen. So I click fork. This created a new pen that's under my user. Of course, you're going to need to be logged in. And now every change I make will be saved in my pen. It's not going to harm the other guy's pen. This is my pen now. And by pen I mean like snippets of code. This is what CodePen is about. So I'm going to click this little drop down over here and I'm going to click view compiled CSS. What that does, it just changes the CSS to regular CSS. It's a bit longer, but now WordPress can read this. Okay, now if you want this to save, when you make a change like this, usually anything you do on CodePen saves automatically. But if I'm going to close this window and then open it again, it won't save. So to save this, what you need to do is copy all of this compiled CSS from less, go into settings. Under CSS, we want to change from less to none. Okay, save and close. And now I'm going to replace that CSS with the compiled CSS that I just copied. As you can see, everything is working great. Perfect. So we got this set up and we can go to the next step. The next step is starting to create our widget. Okay, and let me just check before. I would take off any CSS that's related to the body or to the HTML. We don't want to use any of that. Let's see if it changes anything over here. Okay, it made it a bit bigger, but of course we will have options to change that later using Elementor. So we have our CodePen set up, and now we want to start creating this into an Elementor widget. I'm going inside of my WordPress dashboard, and in my WordPress dashboard I need to select first of all the category that I want to work in. And before that, of course, if you're not familiar with Unlimited Elements is a widget library and a widget creator for Elementor. It gives easy access to beginner developers to create their own widgets without PHP or use existing widgets from the widget library. So I'm inside of Unlimited Elements. Unlimited Elements is currently free. You can install it. You can find it under plugins. And let's start making our widget. So I'm going to make my widget in my new category. I'm going to create a new category. I'm going to click on the plus. Let's call it my sliders. Perfect. Once you've done that, you can scroll down and see the new category you created. Click on it and no widgets found because it's empty currently. And I'm going to click add widget. Now we need to give the widget a title. I'm just going to copy this title. I like the title. I think it's good. and um, click tab. Once you click tab, it just fills in the widget name automatically, and click add widget. Perfect. So we got our widget. We already got a widget inside of Elementor right now, but the widget is empty. It doesn't have anything inside of it. And now we want to populate it with data and settings. So I'm going to double click, and we open the widget creator framework. Okay. So over here in icon, we can choose an icon for this. I don't know. Let's like look for an image icon because it's a slider. Perfect. We got our icon set up, and now we go to the HTML tab. I'm gonna copy the HTML and paste it inside. And by the way, you do want to check out if there's anything not necessary. For example, this main tag over here, and I don't think we need this header wrapper, so I'm just gonna take that off. Perfect. That's good enough for now. And we can go to copying our CSS. I'm just gonna copy that and paste that in the CSS tab. Perfect. Next thing we want to do is copy our JavaScript. So JS, I'm going to copy that and go into JavaScript. Now before pasting my JavaScript, something that's important for beginners to understand is that before loading any JavaScript commands, we want to add something that's called document ready. We want the JavaScript to load only once the document is ready to load it. So to do that, for people who don't know how to write JavaScript by themselves, like me, by the way, what you're going to want to do is click here to show code examples. So I'm going to click on that, and on the right side we have JS code snippets. I'm going to click on that, and over here we have document ready, which is what we need. So jQuery document ready function. This says when the document is ready, load my JavaScript, and we want to paste our JavaScript over here where it says put your code. So I'm gonna replace that with put my code, and as you can see, we're using jQuery instead of the $sign. So we want to replace $signs with the string jQuery. Make sure the Q is big and all the other letters are small case. So I'm going to replace this $sign with the jQuery tag. I've done that. Looks good. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going back into my example. And as you can see, we've added the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript. But there are some hidden files over here in CodePen. And this is another thing that many people miss. So if I'm going to click settings, over here under JavaScript and CSS, you can see other files that are being loaded into this pen. So let's start with CSS. I'm going to want to load this CSS file into my widget. So I'm just going to copy this CDN file that's coming from the CDN, and I'm going to jump into the JS CSS includes tab. Over here we have on the right side a place for JS includes and CSS includes, which is very similar to what we see over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste this CSS, click tab, and as you can see, it selected the file. We're going to add a new file by clicking the plus button, and let's take this one, paste it over here. Everything is working as we expected, and I'm going to jump over to the JavaScript tab. Over here in the JavaScript tab, we can see we're loading jQuery. Now, to load jQuery, we could have copied this and pasted it, or we can use the predefined jQuery library that comes with unlimited elements. As you can see, there are all sorts of predefined libraries that come with unlimited elements. jQuery is the most popular one. I'm just going to click that, and now jQuery has been loaded to the page. We don't need to use this one from here. What we do need is the two other ones. I'm going to copy them, paste, add a new one by clicking plus, copy the other one, paste. Perfect. I think we got everything set up, and the next thing before we make this widget dynamic is we want to check that our example is working. So I'm going to click update, I'm going to go into pages, I'm going to click add new, and let's make our page full width. So I'm going to content layout, I'm using Ocean WP with Ocean Extra. So Ocean Extra gives you the ability to make the page 100% width. You can do this with many of the current themes, so it's not a problem. Perfect, we got our page, and I'm going to look for the word slick, which is our simple animated slider with slick.js. Gonna drag that inside, and as you can see, our widget is working, and it's working not bad at all. So next thing we want to do is we want to make this widget editable. So as you can see, it doesn't have any settings, and we want it to have settings. So the first setting is going to be the ability to add images. Let's click publish to save this first of all, and go back into item attributes, and I'm going to enable item attributes. Okay, next thing over here, what we're going to do is jump into the HTML, and we want to recognize what is an item inside of the HTML. So over here we can see this is a slide, that means it's one item. I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to click on the right side, put items. What put items means is create my loop. I want my loop to start and copy and paste this HTML as many items as I have. So put items, and we can delete the second item, which is not needed anymore. I'm going to paste the loop HTML under item HTML. This box shows only once we've enabled items over here. Okay, it's super important. It won't show if we didn't enable items. Also, the put items tag that we used over here won't show if we didn't enable items first of all. And let's look what an item is made of. So what an item is made of is an image, is a title, and is a paragraph. So we're going to want to make sure that we have at least these three settings under item attributes. So we have already a title, it's just missing some default value. Let's copy the default value from here and replace it. If we click on title, we can change it over here. We can also make our font editable, which we do want, so the user can play around with the fonts. And we got our attribute set up on the right side. Make sure your text is selected and just click on the attribute, it will replace it. And now when users add this widget to the page, they will be able to edit this attribute. Next attribute is going to be the paragraph. So I'm just going to click item attributes, add attribute, choose over here, let's go for text area. I'm going to call it paragraph. Perfect. Paste it over here, allow font edit, add, go back to the HTML, make sure it's selected, and choose the attribute from the right side. Perfect. I got this set up. Next thing I'm going to do is my image. For the image, we need to save our image first of all on our computer. So I'm going to open a new tab. I'm going to open up this image. I'm going to save it. Let's call it image 1. Let's go back to the CodePen and to our second image and save that as well. Let's call it image 2. Perfect. And back to our widget creator. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to item attributes. I'm going to add an attribute. I'm going to add an image. I'm going to give it a title and click add attribute. After creating our image attribute, we go into HTML, back again, and over here we're going to replace this static HTML with our image attribute. I'm going to click update, save. Now we want to choose a default image, and we can't do that until we create an assets path for this widget and upload our images over there. So the reason why we want to work with defaults is when someone drags this inside of the page, we don't want it to be empty, since he won't understand what's going on. He's just going to say this doesn't work, and he's going to delete it from the page and won't use it. So when creating widgets for other people to use, we need them to be with defaults. Okay, so I'm going to create an assets folder. Let's just copy the widget name. Okay, that will be the assets folder. I'm going to click create folder, and this creates the folder. I'm going to search for the folder since I need to go inside. I did this with Control F, and you can just scroll down and find it, but since I have many over here, I just use Control F from the browser. I'm going to go inside, and the first super important thing that you want to do is over here where it says widget asset path not set. We want to assign this folder to the widget. So I'm going to click set, and now this folder is assigned to the widget. So for example, if we're going to export and import it to another website, this folder will come with the widget. Okay, next thing, I'm going to click upload. I'm going to choose my two images that we saved earlier. I'm going to click close, and now when we go to item attributes, open this widget, we can select an image. The images that it's going to let us select are the images that we uploaded into our assets folder. So I'm just going to click one of these, click select, update attribute, and now we have a default item. Perfect. Last thing before we can test this is we need to go into widget defaults, and we need to create items. Okay, now over here we decide once someone adds this to the page, how many items there will be and what their default content and values will be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click add item. As you can see, the default image is populated automatically, so I just can click add item. I'm going to click add item again to add the second item. Let's choose this time the second image, and now we have this default values selected. I'm going to click save, and I'm going to refresh the page over here and click over here, and as you can see, we have two items which are exactly the items that we chose earlier, and our slider is working. Of course, many of you know, if you want to make this section full width, just go into the section settings and choose full width, and update, refresh. Let's wait for that to save. Perfect. And looks great. Super. Let's just check out. I want to check out the style over here. If we enable style, okay, let's try to make this the title white. You can see it's working, and everything is super easy. Now if you want to take this one step ahead, let me show you one last thing. Let's go back into edit this add-on and in the HTML. And the next step, if I would want to continue and make this even better, as you can see, you have motion effects and delay for the paragraph. So you can make these also into settings, or even the animation for the image. Right now it's zoom in image. So you need to check out what the options are for Slick Slider, for what kind of animations it supports, and you can make this into attributes with a drop down selection, so the user can choose fade in, fade up, fade down, slide in, slide up, slide down, and so on. Or maybe You don't want to make this into settings. And that's what's nice about the widget creator, that we don't create settings we don't want the user to use and ruin our design. We show him only what he wants and only what he needs. Thank you for joining this tutorial about Slick Slider and converting a CodePen into an Elementor widget. And see you next time. Bye bye.